Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome back to another episode of Common Sense Co-Parenting. I am Dr. Jerry Johnson, and please remember that my mission is to empower parents to navigate the complexities of co-parenting with clarity, collaboration, and compassion, ensuring a nurturing environment that centers on the well-being of the child above all else. So today's episode, we are continuing from our last episode about high conflict co-parents. And my guest is back, Leanne McEvoy. Our last conversation was very deep. This one is going to get a little bit deeper because we are going to delve into co-parenting with a high conflict co-parent, but what if that co-parent or we have some mental health concerns or some trauma issues? So one thing I wanted to start out the conversation with, which Leanne and I had already started before we started this episode. I was extremely surprised, but coming from schools, I've seen it with kids all the time and some parents. But I read about a large scale, like international study that was done that found that about 50% of adults experience mental health disorder at some point in their lives. So a mental health disorder that could, there's a range, right? Liam, we just talked about. So there's a spectrum of mental health disorders that we have that go from kind of like the not so serious in mental health, eyes to the very serious, like the light to the, I guess, most dark. And Leanne was telling me some things about how that 50% might not necessarily be 50%, right? Why don't you give us a little bit of background on that?
Yeah. I started my career in business and it was fast paced, high pressure, and it was sales. So it was even more fast paced and high pressure. And there's no time to be off, there's no time to be sad, there's no time to be mad, there's no time to feel any other emotion other than just go. And it took me moving from New York to San Francisco to really start looking at my life and saying, there are some things that I have struggled with. And it wasn't until I really changed careers and went to get my master's in social work that I really started to understand. And human behavior just exploded my world of understanding.
Mm.
And it made me realize I've got some unaddressed trauma. And we only had one assignment, and it was to write a paper that took a mental health diagnosis and then go through the stages of development and apply theory. Well, I was one of those people that if you never said it out loud, it was never real. Deny, deny, deny. And I said to my husband at the time, I would rather die than write this paper because I had never given it breath. I had never given it air. And so it was over Thanksgiving break, and it ended up being like 45 pages. Now I was 39, so I had gone through a lot more developmental stages, and I looked at the kids in my my class, and I'm like, well, you're lucky. You're 22. Like, what have you gone through? But it was this self-discovery of holy moly. and learning about enmeshment, triangulation, narcissism, multi-generational trauma, because we think, oh no, that's not me. Like, oh, I'm gonna go, okay, childhood. But the reality is, until we acknowledge it and understand it, we'll never deal with it. And you say from the study 50%. I firmly believe that it's probably 100%,
Mm.
because mental health is brain health. Just like we have physical health, we have brain health. And there are so many studies, like you look at an MRI and what that shows. There is also an fMRI, a functional MRI, and you look at a brain with no trauma and a brain with trauma, and you're like, oh, wow.
It is. It's crazy.
And so it's like when we think about people in the workplace or at church or in the community that are just angry all the time or toxic, there's something unaddressed in them.
Hmm.
They're not bad. And I will be transparent and say the diagnosis that I used was an eating disorder. And I didn't, it started at age 13, and I didn't tell anyone until I was 33. It took me 20 years to tell someone. And I now understand what manifested all of that. And it's I know I have a degree in it, but I'm also so focused on people's lived experiences and their stories. Some people will never want to talk about it, but when you give someone a safe space
Yep.
without fear or judgment, such magical transformation takes place. And that's really what happened in my marriage. And my husband was struggling. I didn't know yet about the unaddressed trauma. We were going through fertility treatments, and I learned that there was a mental health and substance issue. And like every step we needed to take to listen, to understand. I have had suicide in my family. I've had substance abuse in my family. So I had a greater awareness, and it didn't scare me. It made me, I went closer.
Okay.
And there is so much judgment around it. And I remember like going to family day at a treatment facility, and, young people where they had stolen and taken advantage, and their families just ended up angry at them. And I'm like, no, we have to be supportive. And, this is a disease, but there are also mental health components. And he was sober for 10 years. And it was the most magical time. We had our kids. We were just in lockstep with each other. But the reality was he hadn't addressed the root cause.
Mm.
And he went back out, and it took me another 10 years, but I finally understood what those families were feeling, because you're there, and you get tired.
Mm.
And, then there's menopause, and then there's career changes, and then there's financial challenges, and then there's young kids, and it becomes too much.
Yeah.
And so many suffer in silence. And I admit that I have also. And unless and until we normalize it, we all have brain health. It doesn't mean that you meet the clinical criteria for a diagnosis. And like you were saying, like there's depression and anxiety, and then there's bipolar, and there's neurodiversity, and there's schizophrenia. And you were saying it is a continuum. But unless and until we start to understand and acknowledge, I'm feeling a little off today.
Yes.
And being honest to say to our partner, our friends, our co-parents, I'm not okay. Like I need a break. And that is called putting our own oxygen mask on. And it's hard because we're like, give, 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 give. And it wasn't until I was 51, I had been so desperate for other people to love me unconditionally that I was willing to do whatever it takes. And I sacrificed my own mental health and well being, and it almost cost me my life. But I had to get there in order to really do the work. And there are complex trauma treatments. EMDR is what worked for me. DBT is another one. It's not just substance abuse. And again, having been through a lot of different programs, 10% drinking, 90% thinking. And, but most people just think it's a choice. It's not. Just like food for me, I was feeding emotional emptiness because I wasn't getting it from my parents. And you either have positive coping or you have negative coping.
Yep.
And we cope in negative ways until we realize that we're hurting ourselves, we're hurting those around us, and we want to be happier. We want to live more productive lives. And for me, that change was when I said, I am going to give myself the unconditional love because I am enough. And that was the start of me really coming into my own. And I love hearing about people's journeys because when someone knows they're not alone, it can just relax your shoulders a little bit. And, you know, we've had more in-depth discussions about our own lived experiences. And in a co-parenting situation, when there's figure pointing and judgment and accusations and shaming, if someone is in a traumatic state, they're going to revert to whatever it is that they know that numbs it. But when you can meet them and say, I'm not exactly sure what's going on, but I'm here and you're not alone, and research and ask questions and reach out to other people. We all have stuff. We all do. And it's really what I tell my kids, because right now their father's not really in their life. And it took me too long to make that decision. But what I ended up telling him and telling them and telling myself, their safety, health, and well being is my focus.
Yep.
And that's it. And it meant that I was on my own, and that is hard. And I'm now 3 years post divorce, but it's really been at least 7 years that things have been gone.
Okay.
But I wanted to believe. And I said to him at one point, I wish that I could love you enough that you could love yourself. But that wasn't helpful because unless and until he did the work, acknowledged, and he hid a lot. But I was patient and I finally said, I know that there's so much more going on with you. And unless and until you tell me, I can't be a place of support.
Right.
And you know, I've worked in child welfare, I've worked in juvenile justice, I've worked in mental health, I've worked in advocacy. There is nothing I haven't heard. I've been in courtrooms with the 1% with families that are struggling, and I've been on the complete other end of the spectrum. Mental health does not discriminate. Abuse, neglect does not discriminate, but so many suffer in silence, and that's what we have to change.
Yeah, and as a co-parent, I can imagine having to, like we said in the last episode, put those boundaries there. And your main boundary was it was about the the health and well-being of your children, first and foremost. That's what you have to worry about, or that's what you were concerned about. Um, it's hard to put those boundaries in place, especially when it's somebody that you love that you see that they're suffering. You don't want to add to the suffering. You don't want to add to, their worry or anything like that because you still care about that person. Even whether you say you're in love with them or if you're married to them or not, you still have a care about your co-parent because this is the person you have children with, right?
Yes.
So you don't want to add to what it is they're already dealing with. However, um, we have to first and foremost think about the effect that it has on the children as they're trying to grow and develop, and we're trying to grow and develop them. How is this affecting them? Because I'm an adult, and in some ways I can manage emotions, I can manage certain things. They're learning at this point in time how to navigate this emotional, waves and all of this.
Mhm.
We may not as adults do it well, but we can mask it well. We
Mhm.
can fake it till we make it. And a lot of times we have to in order to put our children first. But I think that people need to really understand that when and if you or your co-parent is going through this type of mental health concern or trauma issues, that it's okay still to have those boundaries. It's okay to still say, I want to help and support you, but I have to take care of our children first because they are not able to at that point in time. Somebody has to, right?
And you hit two nails on the head. So I will love and support you, but I will not sacrifice my own mental health and well being or the mental health and well being of our kids because that's not doing any of us any good. And what that becomes is enabling.
Mm-hmm. Mm. Yes.
And, you know, people are like, oh, happily ever after and love is enough. if I may be so bold, bullshit. Because it is not. Because life is hard. And at the end, my hope is that the good days outweigh the bad.
Yes, absolutely.
And there has to be action and accountability. And if that person is struggling and I call and make the appointment, I drive them to the appointment, I drive them home from the appointment, what level of investment do they have in the change? They don't.
None.
Because you
Absolutely
are
none.
continuing as a caregiver.
Mm-hmm.
And I know it might be, it is hard. And it's not about ultimatums. It's not about, again, that shaming or that finger pointing. It's through a lot of meditation, consulting with my pastor, all of the work that I have done. This is what I need. If you are not able to give me what I need, I have to make choices and decisions and take action. I went on for too long. I admit it. Because with trauma, there's a codependency that you feed off each other and not healthy.
Mm-mm.
Um, and it's not, I also want to make sure to reinforce one, well, I'll go to that in a second, but you said fake it till you make it. Yeah, we can do it. And as women, we have mastered the art.
Yeah.
However, I don't want to wear a cape anymore. And I'm not going to fake it till I make it because if I get to the point where I can't anymore, it doesn't do anybody any good.
Sure doesn't.
And we also have our own mental health. We also have our own limits. We also have to do the work. If there is a family of four, a family unit, it is not one person that is the problem. It is the family system because it impacts everybody. If I hadn't done all of my own work, I couldn't sit here and talk about this.
Mm-hmm.
But I will share my story. I will share my challenges because I grew up in a family where you don't talk about any of it. But the reality is, not talking about it hurts everybody.
It does.
And so it's like when we would work with families, and usually it would be a child that, well, they're the problem. What do you mean they're the problem? Like, let's look at all of the environments that they exist in. And
Exactly.
um and so when people get on their high horses and, well, this is what's wrong with the school system, this is what's wrong with religion, this is, and it's like, okay, let's go back and look at self.
Right. Let's turn that around.
And am I contributing to the health, safety, and well-being, or am I contaminating? And I know because of trauma, because a lot of other reasons, we don't want to take responsibility, but unless and until we take responsibility for ourselves, who are we to point fingers at anybody else?
Right. Exactly. And we got a lot of finger pointing going on in this world. A lot of finger pointing going on in this world where people feel like, oh, I'm just going to jump on the bandwagon and I'm going to, finger point too. Like this, like follow the non-leader. Follow the fool. Like I'm just
Because it's
like, come on,
easier.
man.
It's easier. And like I look at school systems, you will learn what we teach because
Mhm.
this is the way it's always been done. This is the curriculum, and you will learn the way we teach. And it's like, no, no.
Right.
And I never had an advocate. When I finally found my voice, like, watch out. And I know how I've been treated. I know how I've sometimes treated others. I know how systems have treated me. And it's why I've become a challenger of the status quo. I'm going to ask questions. You might
Right.
not like my questions,
Exactly.
but someone that actually cares will be open to a conversation. And we have to push back. And the people that don't want to be pushed back on,
Oh my gosh, I think you froze. I think she froze that for a second.
whoop, are we
Okay,
back? Okay,
gotcha.
sorry.
It's
Um,
all right. So the people who don't want to be pushed back on, I have a whole lot of, but finish that sentence.
they're part of the problem.
They are the problem.
They
I
are the problem. And
don't ever have a problem with questions. I never have a problem with questions. Like, I don't understand the problem with people who have a problem with questions. Because to
fear.
me, if you're questioning, most of the time, 99.9% of the time, you're not just being a butthole, questioning, because some people just ask questions because they want to try to catch you up in something, right? That you're just being a butthole. But 99.9% of the time, people question because they care.
Yep.
Like they question because they want to know. Like they question because, they feel some type of way about something. And my thing is, okay, I value the questions. I don't have a problem with any question because if you ask a question, then I'm sure it's like 2 to 5 other people in this room who probably have the same question. So let me just answer for everybody for consistency of the message, right? Let me
Yep.
just do it. So I prefer when people ask questions in a group or out loud or what have you. So consistency of the response is not them going to tell each other, oh, Dr. Johnson said, no, this is what Dr. Johnson is saying. Let me say it for everybody to hear it. And what do I need to clarify for you afterwards? Like, what questions do you have? Is my main thing. Like, so I'm just I don't get the not wanting to answer questions and the pushback piece. But people do what they do.
Power, control, and fear.
Oh, that fear is a big one. That fear is a big one.
And at the core of any successful relationship, there has to be trust. And the greatest barrier to trust is fear. And I was afraid for a long time until I became more aware and
Mhm.
I sought to understand. And when someone asks you a question, depending on who it is, depending on the situation, I might sometimes say, well, what do you think? because you're inviting someone in. You're either going to call someone out or you're going to invite someone in. When someone feels called out, their brain immediately goes into a place of fear because they are going to be judged. They're going to be
Mhm.
laughed at. They're whatever the potential response is. But when you make space for someone to actually share, and maybe instead of just turning it back around and saying, what do you think? It's all right. Well, I'm going to let you know what I think the answer is, but my answer is based on my experiences.
Right.
Your answer might be different. Doesn't mean either answer is wrong. They are both valid. And when people are so strong on one side and so strong on the other, to me, the compromise is the middle. And would you rather be right or would you rather be happy? And so many people just no, no. Can I do this? No. I need this. No. And that perpetuates the toxicity. That perpetuates the fear, the shame, the stigma. And I used to be one of those people. Nope. And now I'm like, help me understand.
Mm-hmm.
And that invites people in. And I know we get tired, we get angry, mad, sad, frustrated, pissed off. And in that moment, it's the take a pause. I'm just not in a place where I can answer that right now. But either let's schedule time if it's in a work environment, if it's in a community environment. I had someone email me from church the other day. They wanted me to take on something else because I'm the head of the board of outreach. And I said, you are welcome to share my email. Whatever that person shares with me, I will share with the rest of the board. I said, but I am not capable of taking this on personally right now. I was honest. I honored myself.
Yep.
I might disappoint people, but the reality is we disappoint people in life
All the time. All the
and
time.
we are disappointed.
Mm-hmm. All the time.
But when we
And
have a level of understanding, like, okay, they're mad, what they're going through doesn't really have to do with me. Instead of internalizing it all, that was a big aha moment for me. I wanted to save him. I wanted to fix. I wanted to solve. I wanted to love him enough. But people got to do their own work. And in a co parenting relationship, it can be really, really hard.
mm-hmm.
But when we acknowledge this is really, really hard, and I have had to say to my friends, I am not okay. And I do have an official diagnosis of depression and anxiety and have dealt with trauma with a small t. Um, I have been on antidepressants and anti anxiety medication and thought I was doing really well. So, with the help of my doctor, weaned off over the course of 5.5 months. And for about 6 weeks after that, I thought I could conquer the world until I couldn't. And I went downhill fast. And I had to make a phone call to someone and specifically say, I am not okay. Because I was a single mom alone with my 2 kids and I needed support. And several people in my tribe said, you are the safety net for everyone. You need to let those people be the safety net for you right now. And
Yep.
I did. And
Yep.
I now know how to ask for help. And I stopped therapy for a while. I am now back in therapy. And asking for help is a strength. It's hard. But when people know that there's at least one person out there that will never judge, and they're just going to be there, whether it's a text, it's a call, it's a smoke signal, whatever it is,
Right.
it's hard, and there are no quick solutions. It's a journey. Life is a journey. Um, and if you're listening to this and you're thinking, wow, I wonder if my ex or whoever it is has a mental illness. Before you try and diagnose them, look at yourself. What have I been through that might be impacting the way I behave? And then think about your parents, think about what they went through. Like multi-generational trauma is real. Like my parents' generation and being a Gen Xer, and I was 41 and 43 when I had my kids. So I've had a lot of lived experiences. And it gives me a different perspective. But when I don't know something, I research it or I go to someone that knows and can help me understand. And it's a great opportunity to educate ourselves. It's a great opportunity to learn about ourselves, to become more self-aware, because when we're self-aware, we learn how to love ourselves. We learn how to be patient with ourselves. We learn how to know when we're not okay. And it makes us more compassionate and empathetic and makes us more kind and become better people.
I mean, it does. And then your kids see that, right? I mean, just yesterday, it's so funny that you said that because just yesterday I had a day where I wasn't feeling like myself yesterday. Like I woke up and it was all over me. Like I prayed, I exercised, you know what I'm saying? I read scripture. I did all the things yesterday, did some work. I wasn't even feeling like doing work. And honestly, I was excited about the work. I'm excited about the work that I'm doing now.
Yeah.
Even though I work for three different companies, it's a little crazy sometimes, but I'm excited about the work that I'm doing. And yesterday there was no excitement about anything. And then I talked to my daughter last night and I was gonna go to women's Bible study. Love going to this church, love going to women's Bible study. Yesterday, I was just like, I'm not feeling it. Like, I think I'm just going to watch it online. Wasn't feeling social. Talked to my daughter, and I was like, I'm not going to women's Bible study. She was like, what? You were so excited about it. And I was like, yeah, I said, just not feeling like myself today. And she was like, oh, not feeling social. She was like, oh, yeah, I felt like that, a couple of days ago. So she gets to talking about herself. And then she was like, well, Mom, I hope you feel better, after Bible study. And I did. I felt better after Bible study, just sitting on the couch, just focusing on women's Bible study. They were talking about Jonah. I mean, in the belly of the whale and how how you didn't know the backstory of who he was, didn't know his father was an apostle. I was like, what? And then he defies God telling him to do something, and he's the kid of an apostle. It's like, come on now. But
Yeah.
she got into talking about how obedience is not inherited. Obedience is a choice. So I'm thinking the kids in the classroom, parents saying, I don't know what to do with this kid, things like that you just talked about. It's so interesting because they pick up on your coping mechanisms. They pick up on the things that you do
Do
or
they?
don't do
Yep.
to get your mental health together, what you do to decompress, what you don't do that maybe should be healthy and is not. I mean, so we really have to think also of what we're modeling for our children. Even though that trauma may be passed down, once again, like obedience, some things may be inherited, but they also can be switched with just one choice.
Mhm.
So that trauma that may be passed down to them, if they are willing to work on it. And when I read, I was like, the most mental illnesses, the manifestation age is 14. 14 when these things start to really come out and
Yeah.
you really start to see it. So it's like, think about if we could get them help at those ages that, like you said, 13. Yours was 13, right? Think about if you had help at 13 with that and you had some support and you had the things that you needed. By the time you got married, you had kids, things like that. There would have been some things that you would have known how to navigate or would have had better structures or supports in place to be able to navigate, right?
And it's, I mean, the term and concept social emotional learning.
Yes.
There are programs all over the United States, and many of them are embedded in schools.
Mhm.
And I live less than 10 miles from Sandy Hook. And those kids came into our school while their school was being rebuilt. I have a keen awareness for trauma. I have a keen awareness for when kids are struggling. We need to learn and understand why. But as much as kids need to learn social emotional learning, so do adults.
Oh, yeah.
Because we never had it.
Nope.
We weren't taught that. I was told by my fourth grade teacher, because around Christmas, we had a Christmas concert, right? So at the end of the day, she has us watching some boring movie. And I'm like, time to go across the hall to practice our songs. So I went over and I said to her, I think it's past time. We're supposed to be over, practicing our Christmas songs. And she looked right at me and she said, mind your own damn business.
Mm,
How do you think that made me feel about adults? How do you think that made me feel about teachers? How do you think that made me feel about school?
right.
And I didn't have someone to go to and tell that to because you didn't.
Right.
You
You didn't
didn't
tell on
do that.
teachers back then. No.
And I didn't know anything about relationships. I didn't know about love and I knew nothing. It was, I survived and I learned on my own and I made a lot of bad choices. Um, and then when we get to falling in love and getting married and having babies, because that's what they say you're supposed to do,
Yep.
I want to make sure that when my kids leave the nest, they have the knowledge and the tools to know right from wrong, to know that they're going to have choices. I can either choose to do the bad thing or I can choose to do the right thing. And they're going to do the bad things. They're going to. Hopefully, they won't do as many as I did.
Right.
But that they know no matter what, I am still going to be there. I am not going to judge them. You got to go through it
Mhm.
to be aware. And like when, we had our first child, he traveled a lot, and it was a very traumatic birth. It was, I mean, your hormones are all over the place. And then he leaves to travel for work, and I'm alone, sobbing,
Mm.
because it's the crying, it's the up in the middle of the night, it's being exhausted. And everyone's like, parenting is the greatest gift. And it is, don't get me wrong. I had to go through a lot to have my kids. And so they were like, that was God saying to me, we know you got this.
Mhm.
There are some dark moments. And nobody talks about it, but there are dark moments.
Oh, my talks about that part.
And unless and until we start having these real conversations, as opposed to saying, put a bow on it and suck it up, nothing changes.
Yeah.
And I know my kids think I'm weird. I know they think I'm crazy. I know, they're also at the stage like, don't embarrass me, mom. And it's like, it's our job to embarrass you. But at the same time, I know that my kids will tell me when something's not right. And
That's
they also say, you know what? My friend is going through this. Anything you can suggest? Because if kids aren't safe at home, they're not going to be safe in the community.
Mhm.
If kids are angry at home, they are going to be angry in the community. Bullying and shaming, and it's fear. It's fear. And so, yeah, people are different. I also work a lot with the neurodiverse population, and I'm part of this global movement called the Octopus Movement, which is nonlinear thinkers solving the world's unsolvable problems. And I never realized that I was nonlinear, yet I have a very nonlinear career path. I have, like, you may hit 18 different topics in 12 seconds, and I am locked into all 18 because that's how my brain works. And when kids get labeled ADHD, that
Yeah.
is neurodivergency.
Yes, it is.
There's so much more than just ADHD. And there's sensory, and then people are seen as different. And there's so many variations of neurodivergency. And we're all different, but we're all unique, and we're all God's children.
Hmm.
And we do our best. And sometimes our best isn't good enough, but it's still our best.
Exactly.
Allow ourselves, we were talking about grace before. Like, I give other people grace, but I've also gotten a lot better at giving myself grace. So when you woke up yesterday and you were off, you gave yourself grace, and you were honest with your daughter. And then it's like, oh, like, my mom might not be okay today. I'm going to lift her up.
Mhm.
Or
Yeah.
you're going to put them down, and then you perpetuate the problem.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think what co-parents really need to understand is that if you and or your co-parent is dealing with anything that has to do with mental health or trauma, it is you need to put in the work as well as your co-parent needs to put in the work. Because whether it's one of you or whether it's both of you, you still have the children or the child in the middle of that.
And to
Um,
acknowledge that if you don't take care of yourselves, you cannot take care of them.
Exactly.
And it's not about, well, they have a mental health problem. They have a mental health problem. It is we. And
Yes.
I'll share this. When I got my master's and I did my master's thesis, I did it on therapeutic alliance. So, and I was working with boys between the ages of 8 and 12 that had stepped down from a psychiatric unit in a hospital into a residential facility. And I was older than a lot of the other clinicians. So that put me in a position of authority. And a lot of these boys were scared and had been through very traumatic things. And I shifted and I had to write all my notes going from, well, I think to we, us. How are we? It
Mhm.
built trust. How are we going to do this? As opposed to, well, what are you going to do? Accusatory.
Yes.
And so in a co-parenting relationship, you can say, well, what are you going to do? Or you need to fix this, or you need to do this. Think about it. What are we going to do? How are we going to do this? How are we going to best support our kids? How am I going to best support myself so that I can be part of a positive we? And it makes all of the difference. And another big reframe with wording is if to when. If invites question and doubt. When is intentional.
Okay.
And even with kids, well, if you finish your dinner,
Mm-mm.
you'll get this. It creates doubt in them subconsciously. So, well, when you finish your dinner,
Mm-hmm.
you will either have the choice of going outside and play or reading a book. And I have watched speeches, sales presentations, and I will go up to speakers and say, everything that you said was really inspirational. I'm going to make one suggestion. Change your if to when,
Okay.
and you will inspire at a far greater pace. So when
Mm-hmm.
I get through all of this work, I can go outside and go for a walk. If I finish this work, I might get to go for a walk. Intentional.
Yeah. Very, very. And I think that's great because I naturally kind of do that now, but the explanation for the reframing, the why, the purpose of it, I've never really thought like why I did that.
Do you ever invite or do like a three-way podcast? Like, would a co-parent, either one or both, ever want to come in and share their journey and then we all just kind of talk about it and help each other?
That would be fantastic. That would be a great, that is a great idea. Thank you for bringing that.
Yeah. Yeah,
Thank you for bringing that. And you're saying that you are volunteering for
I
this.
am.
You got it on camera, y'all. You got
I'm not being voluntold.
it.
Yeah, I think that that would be an amazing opportunity
Yes.
because I think about what I do for work and people that I've talked with such a variety of lived experiences. And I'm always the person to say, how can I help? What can I
Mhm.
do? And know that I'm a safe space. And if we start sharing our stories and supporting each other, the ripple effect is magic.
Yes, because there's a lot of people who need to understand, like you said, once I try to tell people all the time, you are not by yourself. Like in these thoughts that you have, in these situations that you have, believe me, you are not by yourself, but people don't really know until you start speaking on, like you said, your lived experience with it. They don't know to what depth you have experienced things. A lot of people think it's just surface. They didn't have the same situation that I had because of X, Y, and Z. But when you find out somebody else's situation is worse or much deeper than yours, you're like, oh my God, like
Yeah.
the pearls. So
Yeah.
yes, people, I mean, sometimes I think you need to know to the depth of what someone has experienced because it
Yeah.
makes you either appreciate your situation a little bit more and say, oh yeah, I can get through this. They got through that. I can get through this. And or it just gives you the other perspective of excuse me, of the what the situation actually could have been or could be, good or bad.
Yeah.
You know it can get better, or you know it could have been a whole lot worse.
Yeah.
So yeah. I mean, I totally get it. But I'm going to keep that idea because I think that is fantastic. And I think we've run over once again, but
Of
that's
course.
okay.
But that's okay. Yeah.
That is okay. We got some great nuggets from today's
Yeah.
episode and last week's episode. So I'm going to thank you once again for
I
coming to the.
so appreciate the space we have made to have these conversations, the way we can share honestly and transparently, and the way we might help others. Because that's what it's all about.
Exactly. And if you guys, if there's anybody who would like to volunteer to discuss this topic with Leanne and myself, you're welcome to put your name and or some contact information in the comments of this episode. If you have any questions or anything, you're welcome to do that as well. Then I will get back
Yeah.
to you as soon as possible. And I'll make
Awesome.
sure that we have Leanne on before the end of this year. Before the end of this year, we have to get another episode or two in. So once again, if you found anything in these episodes that you like or that was an aha moment or you just want to see us again, you are welcome to press the like and subscribe button on the episode. And Leanne, we will see you soon from what I've heard.
I look forward to it, and have an amazing rest of your day and an amazing weekend. And we'll say to be continued.
Yes, ma'am. And would you like to give anybody a way to contact you right now? If you want to just tell them where they can contact you.
Sure. So my email address, my work email is lmcavoy, MCEV as in Victor OY, at l2culturesolutions.com. Or my personal email is McEvoy Leanne, LEANNEM at gmail.com.
Thank you. And I did put
And
your LinkedIn information in the last episode.
perfect.
Is that fine? Okay.
Yeah,
All right.
absolutely.
Okay, everybody, we're going to say goodbye on this episode and we will see you soon. Go out there and co-parent with a purpose. Bye.
Awesome. Bye.